This is Parent, Boss, Leader.
Parent, boss, leader.
And here's your host. She's a courageous voice for women, parents, and modern workforce leaders alike. She's a keynote speaker and proud mother of two, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships at ATR International, Laura R. Munson.
Hello, welcome to the show, Parent Boss Leader, a very interactive podcast where I interview leaders across industries about their secret sauce in leadership, and some of them have really cool backgrounds while being parents. Today, welcome to the show. We have Josh Combs with us, and he's the manager of procurement at Liberty Mutual, making quite an impact there. Also a background in the Air Force, a parent himself. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Laura. Excited to be here. Excited to do my first podcast.
Yeah, excited to have you. So let's dive right in.
Awesome.
21 years in the Air Force. Thank you for your service, number one.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, can you share a little bit about being in the Air Force and how this shaped you as a leader in the work world?
Yeah. I think what you'll learn or what you'll see about me as we continue to talk, Laura, is I've always just had a passion, and this is going to sound altruistic, and I admit that fully, but I've always just had a passion to serve. And when I was able to combine my passion of service with a love of airplanes, the Air Force just made total sense to me. So weeks after my 18th birthday, I made the decision, much against some of my family's best wishes, to go ahead and enlist in the Air Force. Looking back on it now, it was a fast 21 years, I'll say that. Ran across a lot of awesome people, many of whom I still stay in touch with, some of my closest friends, people that stood up at my wedding. So a decision that I look back on and can only be grateful for. It was awesome.
Amazing. And do you feel like being in the Air Force, those 21 years, kind of created the leader you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those that have served, and really for those that have worked for any boss in any capacity, we know you're going to see a lot of really, really awesome and great leaders, and you're going to see some that are on the other end of the spectrum that you look at and you realize you're going to take something from them, but it may be, I'm going to take what I don't want to be from this leader, where others you learn to take the best pieces of them. And I think that was a critically important thing that I learned throughout my tenure in the Air Force. It's you have to be able to take something from everybody, whether that's a leader, a peer, a subordinate. Everybody's got something to offer, and you have to be open to that offer. And you have to be very mindful, even in those situations where you're working with somebody that you don't want to emulate, and you make sure you bring that forward with you as you progress in your military career, in your civilian career, in your personal life as well. I think beyond that, really, the leadership styles and just the leadership in the military in general taught me a lot about the need to be agile. You have to be able to change your leadership styles. That was a tough lesson to learn, and that really hit home in my first non-military leadership role. Everything that I had been around, and a lot of the leaders that I had been around, very authoritarian and very direct, that doesn't necessarily translate to the civilian world. And learning how and when to flip that switch and take a different leadership style was hugely important in my maturation as a civilian leader as well.
Yeah, I bet. I can't even imagine the switch from military, very rigid, very structured, to the corporate world where you're dealing with all different types of folks and personalities and backgrounds. And not everyone does handle the authoritative so well. So that must have been an interesting shift.
Yeah, it teaches you a lot about the difference between leaders and managers, right?
Yeah.
And really, as a leader, your role is to put your people first all the time. And it's the same in the civilian world as, in my opinion, it is in the military world. You have to put your people first, and you have to acknowledge the fact that your job as a leader is to empower other people and to really allow them to strive. It's not always to dictate how things are going to get done and when they're going to get done and why they're going to get done, but it's really to empower them to make those decisions and learn and grow and progress in their career, be it military or civilian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love in your bio on LinkedIn, you talk a lot about contingent labor. That's close to my heart, coming from contingent labor staffing side. But why do you think that coming out of the military, your passion led you towards contingent labor and that piece of the business?
It really mirrors why I went into the military, to be honest, Laura. It's again, I'll use the word altruistic. I wanted to go into the civilian world and help people. And I thought a great way, and I still feel a great way to have helped people is to help them find that job that's going to allow them to provide for their family, to be a better parent, to earn more and give their families and themselves and their children the life that they wanted to do. And that's really what led me to recruiting. It was funny because as I was getting ready to graduate college and start looking for that civilian career, I knew I wanted to be in recruiting. And when you start talking to some of the recruiters from the staffing agencies, they're like, wait a second, you want to be a recruiter? You don't want to come in and sell? No, I want to be a recruiter. I want to help people. And
Yeah.
it was all the right reasons, I'll say, that I went into staffing, and I feel very good about that decision.
I love that. And I think it's funny when they say you want to come to our side. I think there is the altruistic side where you're helping people get jobs. And there's that fun part of matching the talent up to what hiring managers are looking for. But on the flip side of our industry, there's so much headache sometimes dealing with people and situations. And I think it's funny how they would present that to you. But I agree, going into recruiting is an awesome industry. You
Yeah.
change people's lives. It's a good feeling. Um, I wanted to shift a little bit. You are a father to two young daughters. How do you balance your demanding career? It's usually a question that comes up in my podcast. A lot of listeners out there are going crazy with corporate life versus kids at home. How do you handle it? Any good nuggets for us?
Well, first and foremost, it's to have a great support system. I have, in my opinion, I have the best wife in the world, and she has helped me and helped our family through some very tough and demanding times. So having that support system behind you, Laura, is incredibly important. And I'm not saying you need a wife to have a support system or any of that kind of stuff, but there's people in your life that can help support you and help you continue to create the balance that's necessary to be a successful professional as well as a successful parent. But I'll tell you what, the remote world and everything like that has made it a ton more difficult. You really have to be intentional, and you have to. My office, as you can see in my background, my office is a tri-purpose room. It's my office, it's my gym, it's a guest room, it's all those things. You have to be very intentional with your time. And if I'm at my desk, I'm working. If I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids, and I'm there. I'm not the professional that's going to be checking my phone every 15 minutes for emails that came in while I'm sitting at my daughter's gymnastics practice. I'm going to make time to make sure I'm at choir concerts and sporting events and things like that. And then there's the level of transparency you have to have with your job too, to let them know, this is who I am. This is why you hired me. You hired me because I'm a good person. I'm good at what I do, but I'm a good person. And part of being a good person is being a good family person. So I believe in a high level of transparency with my work as well. And that includes my bosses, that includes the folks that report up to me, and everyone in between.
Wow. I think that's really good advice you just shared, because a lot of times the remote workers, it all blends together. Kids could be out there watching TV for hours while we're in here working, trying to have meetings, Zoom meetings all day. But separating time is very important. And also the integrity to be transparent with the team is important. A lot of people can shy away from that, afraid, like trying to hide, like, oh, I can do it all. But
Yeah,
really, I think people come alongside of you when you're honest, you share what your situation is. And we do need family people. We'll
yeah,
raise the next generation of good people, right, Josh?
absolutely. Absolutely. I tell you what, Laura, that was one of the early lessons I learned in my first staffing role. I was very closed off with my personal life. It was, this is work and this is personal. And it created a barrier that didn't necessarily need to be there. And I think that is a tough lesson for a lot of people to learn, is there are a lot of great ways and reasons to overlap some of that. It lets people know who you are, and it lets others know that, hey, I support you as a single mom. I may not know what you're going through, but I support you. And having that level of transparency with the folks around you, I think can make a massive difference in the relationships that you're trying to build on the corporate side of things.
Good advice. So focusing on your daughters a little bit, you and I had a cool conversation before about the legacy that you wanted to leave on them and how to train them to be strong, empowered women in the future. What do you think are the specific values that you want to instill in them to be the women in the future who are strong, who are empowered?
Yeah, beyond wrestling with them and toughening them up in the living room.
I love that.
We're at a really unique point with my kids. My daughters, they're 5 and 9, turning 6 and 10 still before the end of the year. So I still got a lot to do before the end of the year. But the first thing, as I'm watching them grow, it's really been teaching them the importance of honesty and integrity above all else. That ties directly back into some Air Force core values, which I love to be able to do. But really, it's getting them to understand that why that honesty, especially when it's difficult to be honest. Who broke this, who did that, and getting them to be honest in those situations and how that's going to help them in the long run, whether it's at home, at school, at work, with their friends. I mean, having a nearly 10-year-old, it's the friend dynamics are getting very, very interesting in our household. But really preaching that honesty and that integrity to them. And then beyond that, and this is just something that I think everybody needs to take to heart, it's to stand up for yourself, number one, but equally important is to stand up for others, especially those that have a hard time standing up for themselves. We don't know what battles other people are fighting. So when I talk to my daughters about standing up for other people, or including others that are maybe sitting on the outside looking in, why is that important? And put yourself in their shoes. This is why you need to stand up for this person. This is why you need to reach out to them, because you don't know what battle they're fighting. You don't know what's going on at home, and they need a place to feel included. And if that's hanging out with you at our house, if that's in the lunchroom, wherever it is, you be that ray of light for them. I just think that's a lesson they can take far into the future and hopefully pass on to their kids when it comes time.
Yeah, the world has a huge need for character. It sounds like you are instilling character in them from a young age, standing up, taking responsibility if they do something wrong, caring for other people, having empathy. So I love that. That is good advice. It's good to remember as a decent human being as parents, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask a little bit too. You have a not-for-profit organization that you help aid military vets. So can you tell us a little bit about that? What is the organization? And then what impact does it have?
Yeah, I could talk about our nonprofit for hours on end, Laura. I love what we're doing. So I helped to run and I helped to start a nonprofit called War Dogs Baseball. And what War Dogs Baseball does is it gives our active service members, veterans, retirees, and spouses an outlet via baseball to really help build a community and build camaraderie away from chains of command, doing something that so many of us have loved since we could throw a ball, right? So we started it officially 3 years ago. So we're going into our third full season as an organization. We've got 13 teams across the country right now, one here in Denver. We got a couple in California, a couple out east, a couple down in Florida. And it's all about bringing the guys together and giving them the opportunity to continue to play baseball, some of them at a very high level. We have a tour across the US where we sponsor Gold Star families. We donate service dogs while we're out on tour, but they're out there playing against collegiate summer ball teams. We're going to be playing against some other charity baseball teams this in the summer of 2024. We're looking to schedule a game with the Boston Fire Jakes, which is the Boston Fire Department's charity baseball team. It's really about helping helping the others on our teams, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in the communities we go to. It's been incredibly rewarding, Laura, and it gives a 42-year-old guy an opportunity to play competitive baseball against a bunch of 18-year-olds still.
This sounds delightful. What's if folks listening are interested in it, what's the website or where would they find more information about it?
Yeah, so you can follow us on all social media, Facebook, Instagram. You can go to wardogsbaseball.org, visit our team store there. If you're so inclined to donate to the organization, please feel free. It goes to a great cause. We don't have any paid workers. All of our time is voluntary. All of our money goes back into our mission, which I think as a nonprofit is, number one, it's a unique thing to be able to say, but number two, it's so important because I see the work we do. I see the families we've impacted. It's really, really an awesome organization with a lot of cool things to come next year.
Yeah, it sounds that way. One of the questions I have as you're helping these veterans, one of the key issues, because we have a military program here at ATR, and something that I always notice is when we have transitioning servicemen, servicewomen coming out, it's hard for them to actually make the jump from military to the corporate world. So people who are listening right now who might be in the military, what advice would you have for them as they're preparing to go into the corporate world?
Yeah, first and foremost, I would say take every opportunity you can, whether that's through the TAPS programs and some of the other transition assistance programs, but equally, if not more importantly, start finding mentors outside of the military.
Yeah.
Everybody should have somewhat of an idea of what they want to try to get into post-military and start networking. Use LinkedIn, use your personal networks, join other nonprofit organizations that help veterans through the transition. But really put yourself out there. It's still people still have the heart to help veterans and the transitioning folks. I hate to say take advantage of it, but I think you know what I mean by take advantage of their willingness. They always say that most people aren't going to get a job because they apply to it. Most people are going to get a job because they know somebody that can help them into that role. And if you're not reaching out and finding mentors and networking throughout the industries that you want to be in or you're interested in being in, you're putting yourself at a big disadvantage. So get out there, put yourself out there.
Yeah, good advice. Putting oneself out there, try. Otherwise, a lot of people think you can just apply for jobs. But the funny thing is, I mean, you and I, we sit on the recruiting side. You might have 1,001 people applying for one job. Only one person's going to get that job. So you have to know people, you have to network. So that's really good advice, not just for military people, it's candidates in general.
Yeah.
Something cool about your background, Josh, wanted to get into it a little bit too, is aside from being in the Air Force and leading contingent workforce, you served as a firefighter in Wisconsin. How amazing is that? So tell us about that. And what did you learn from that position as well?
Oh, I love that, Laura. I tell people on my 18th birthday or shortly after my 18th birthday for some of it, I did a couple of things. I registered to vote because I believe in that civic duty. I enlisted in the Air Force a couple of weeks after turning 18. And on my 18th birthday, I joined the Elkhorn area volunteer fire department in southeastern Wisconsin. I was the youngest firefighter in Elkhorn history at that time. Don't know if I still hold that distinction or not, but ever since I was a kid, my folks have pictures of me running around with just like little briefcases and stuff that I could pretend to be firefighting apparatus and stuff like that. Myself and one of my friends as a young kid, I just so vividly remember it. But it was always a dream to be a firefighter. I wanted to be the guy on the end of the hose running into the building, and I followed through with it. It was really my first, take away high school sports and stuff like that. It was really my first job that gave me a sense of purpose, a sense of doing something bigger than yourself. And I think that set the tone for a lot of the stuff that we've talked about already, Laura, and a lot of what I was becoming or who I was becoming as a person. I loved it. I loved it when those tones dropped at 2 a.m. and I had to rush down to the fire department and jump on a truck. And, that was still back in the day when we had open back cabs of trucks. So it was just awesome. I mean, you can tell I just glow when I talk about it.
Yeah.
And on top of it all, it'll give you that little adrenaline rush. You know, you're going into a building that's on fire that people are running away from, you're going towards, and it,
Yeah.
I loved it.
Gosh, I think there's a theme with you. It's since you were young, even 18 years old, you've wanted to serve and help people. It's very obvious in the career path that you've chosen. So it's super cool to have someone like you at Liberty Mutual. And what's cool is everybody knows Liberty Mutual. We can say Liberty, Liberty. We know all the commercials, right? But what folks maybe don't know is behind the scenes, there's people like you in leadership roles who care deeply about people, running projects, moving things around, and wondering if you could share a little bit about maybe what you're working on project wise in your professional career right now.
Yeah. Um, Really, I took over a new team here a couple months ago, and it's a great opportunity to bring not only the contingent labor side, but the services side of the non-employee business together and start looking at expansion. I think Liberty Mutual does a great job of utilizing all of our talents, but continuing to teach my stakeholders and our executives the benefits of non-employee labor, contingent workforce. It's a critically important time in not only our juncture as Liberty Mutual, but as we can see across the staffing industry, Laura, it's a critical time for people to understand how to use the right type of labor and when.
Mhm.
So I really
Yeah.
look at my role at Liberty right now as a teaching role. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm taking full advantage of it. I think 2024 is going to bear some awesome fruit of that labor.
Mhm.
I've got a team that's super excited to be on the journey with me, which is all I can ask for.
Yeah.
um, we're going to see some big things.
No, that's exciting. And I think there is always a balance sitting on the staffing, say, contingent workforce side, stating the value of it. Because a lot of companies, maybe there's different projects, impacts, and then the temporary workforce, the old word for it, really comes in to help solve issues with projects. So I love what you're doing there. And I love the team that you're growing, managing, building. I mean, you really have a huge hand in that.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to see, looking at the future, personal, professional aspirations, especially on the legacy you want to leave in this world in general. What do you think about that? Where do you see yourself in the future?
That's a great question, and I thought a lot about that. You know, in those sleepless nights when you're staring at the ceiling, where am I going? What am I trying to accomplish? How am I
Mhm.
going to leave this better for the next person? And really, for me, it centers around growth as a person, as a father, and as a professional. You know, I feel very strongly, not to be too cliche with it, I feel very strongly that you're never too old to learn something. I
Mhm.
really have my eyes set on potentially going back to school and getting into labor law, actually, on the
Yeah.
corporate law side of things. So,
Well,
you know, that's when we do a follow up here in 3 years, Laura, I'll let you know if
yeah.
it happened or not.
Yeah.
Um, so on a professional side, it's continuing to evolve and expand my scope on the profession, or excuse me, on the personal side. It's continuing to uh, leave that legacy for my daughters and lead them by the example that I am.
Mhm.
Um, I think they're, and I know you've got, I believe, two daughters as well, Lauren, right around the same age. They pick up on everything right now. And so
Mhm.
it's really about setting that example and continuing to set that example for them, and
Mhm.
leading down a good path.
Yeah. I think if we're to sum up you as a person, where you're at in your career, it's make an impact for the good. Be a good person. Do the right thing.
Sounds
Have
so common sense,
character.
doesn't it?
Yes. Right? And I think you've shared a lot of really practical advice for people who are listening. And I love what you shared at the end. You are never too old to go after your dreams. You're not. There's time. What was it? KFC started when he was 79.
Yeah.
There's always time. It's your spirit, it's your drive, it's belief. So
And those are the things that the spirit, the drive, the belief, those are the things that are going to get you through the tough times too, because we're all going to have them. We're going to have tough times. I mean, I remember laying in a hospital bed after I had a pretty massive brain surgery, thinking this is terrible and how am I going to come back from this? but
Yeah.
it's having that sense of purpose and living for something that you truly, truly believe in that will drive you through that. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Josh, you're an amazing person. Thank you for sharing your story today. If people want to know you or connect with you, was LinkedIn the best place to find you, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great first step. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I love building relationships. I love connecting with people.
Yeah.
And obviously, as we've talked about, I love trying to help them in any way I can.
Yes, and I know that's true because that's how you and I connected. I think I saw one of your posts and I said, "That's a cool post." And I sent you a ping, and the next thing you know, here we are on a
All right.
podcast.
Yeah.
Great having you, Josh. Thank you for all your contributions. Thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for defending folks in the woods with the fires and also being an amazing dad, training women, raising them up. So it was great to have you today.
I'm just trying my best. Thanks, Laura. I appreciate it.